Is it possible to love retro video games and classic horror at the same time? Yeah, of course it is. Stupid question. Greetings, my fellow creeps and freaks. I'm Tom, and welcome to Monster Gab, where we love to talk about classic and vintage horror. And today we're going to be talking about Sweet Home, a Japanese horror film from 1989 that's based in a haunted mansion. Now, this film is a bit of a lost treasure and kind of hard to find. So before we do the review, let me tell you how I came about finding this gem of a movie. And my story starts with one of these. This is a Nintendo or NES Classic Mini. It's one of those miniature consoles that comes preloaded with 30 retro games, because I must admit I am a bit of a retro gamer. But I was a little bit naughty when I bought this one because I had mine hacked. So instead of 30 games, I've actually got 1,000 on this one. Now you may be wondering, what's this got to do with this movie? Well, a few months ago I was browsing through my vast library of games, if you will, and I came across a game called Sweet Home. So for those of you who are interested, the game is like a survival horror game with a top-down view. It's kind of a role-playing game or RPG where you control 5 different characters and you've got to level them up or get into battles and basically survive the night in a haunted mansion and escape without dying. The game itself, or for me personally, was notoriously difficult, so I thought I'd go online and look for a manual. Not a walkthrough, okay, I'm not a cheater, but I needed some kind of manual. It was during my research that I discovered a couple of interesting factors about the game. Factor number 1, the game was only ever released in Japan on the Famicom, which is the Japanese equivalent of the NES. It never really got an English release or a US release, and the version that I was playing was a fan-translated version, meaning that the game itself was also a hidden gem too. This is what makes the next factor all that more interesting to me, because factor 2 is the game was based on a movie that came out around the same time. Now, of course, I'd never heard of the game before, so I'd never heard of the movie too, but I decided that after completing the game, which took a hell of a long time by the way, I thought I'd check this movie out and see what it was like, and you know what? I'm really glad I did. So here is the synopsis then. Ichiro Mamiya was a famous painter of murals and frescoes, but he's been dead for quite a while. In fact, the Mamiya family have been dead for nearly 30 years, and the Mamiya mansion has been derelict for said time. It is believed, however, that there is one last fresco in existence, and it resides within this mansion. A film and TV crew of 5 decide to spend the night in the mansion, find the fresco painting and restore it, whilst also filming a documentary. But they also discover that there is a mystery to this mansion and to the Mamiya family, and that the mansion itself is haunted. I'm sorry about that. So yes, of course, the mansion is haunted, and one of the film and TV crew ends up becoming possessed. So it's down to the rest of the crew to solve the mystery of the mansion and basically get out alive. Something like that. So let's talk about the film itself then. Well, first of all, this film is very, very hard to find. It got released in 1989, and I do believe that it got released on VHS, but there doesn't seem to be any kind of physical copy other than that. There is no DVD release, there's no Blu-ray release, and it's certainly not on any kind of streaming platforms like Netflix or Amazon Prime. Hey, what am I, chopped liver? So you're probably wondering what this is. Well, this is kind of a bootleg release. I got this from a website called Twisted Anger, and I'm not sponsored by them, by the way, but I thought I'd give them a shout out. They have physical copies of films that haven't had an official release. I mean, they are just copies, but it's the best that I could find. If anyone knows of an official release of this film, please do let me know in the comments section, because I would like to own it. So before I actually got this copy, the version I watched was just an upload to YouTube. I believe it's still there, and it has English subtitles too. Yeah, I better just get onto that, by the way. So yeah, like I said earlier, this is a Japanese film, so if you're like me, you don't understand Japanese, you will need English subtitles. Now, this is where my problem for recommending this film comes in, because whenever I try to recommend an old film to people, not all of you of course, but with a lot of people there's this ignorance that if a film is 20 or 30 years old, then it's not worth watching. I don't know where that attitude comes from. Just because a film is old doesn't mean it's bad. And if it wasn't for these old films, you wouldn't get the modern ones that you have today. And if I try to tell someone that a film is in black and white, then people just kind of pull a face and go, it's not for me. So you can imagine the problem I have when I try to convince someone to watch a subtitled film. And the attitude I get then is, if I was going to read, I'd read a book. And I do get it, because often when I'm watching these films, I'm watching them in bed before I fall asleep, so my state of mind is not in the mood for reading subtitles. But with this one, I gave it a go, and I'm so glad I did. The only thing I would say towards that attitude is, there are so many films that are made around the world in different countries and in different languages, and if you don't try to broaden your mind, you're actually missing out on some great movies. I have to defend the fact that just because a film is subtitled doesn't mean it's not worth watching, and you should just, like I said, try and broaden your mind and give it a go. Now, I'd like to talk about the music in the film, because it's done very, very well. It's certainly atmospheric and fits the bill for a Haunted Mansion movie, but it only comes in when it's completely necessary. There are plenty of scenes in the film where there's no music at all, and again, they're trying to create that scary ambience. So it only comes in, like I said, when it's necessary. And the music also fits the nature of what's going on in the film too, because the film also has some kind of funny moments. It's by no means a comedy. This is definitely a horror film, but when there are some kind of subtle humorous moments, the music is kind of jolly and goes with it too, which I think is important because, like I said, the film does have these humorous moments, and what the film does that's quite clever is it takes you out of the aspect that you are watching a horror film. And it's not disorientating in any way. They do it very, very well. It's perfectly executed so that you forget you're watching a horror film at times, and then when something scary does happen, the scare factor is 10 times as great. Now, as far as the acting is concerned, yes, the film is in Japanese, so I had to watch this with subtitles, but that's only dialogue. The acting's not going to win any awards, but it's pretty good. There's nothing wrong with it, and I think the actors did a great job. But it's the characters in the movie that I felt a deep connection with. Now, you might not feel the same connection as I did, because I played the game first, and they are the same characters in the game as they are in the movie. So I felt like I'd already been through a lot with them to begin with, and had gotten to know them. And it's because of this, like I said, felt this deep connection and didn't want anything to happen to these characters. So amongst the characters within the film and TV crew of 5, there is a father and daughter and another female character who have a kind of family connection. The female character and the father certainly have some kind of mutual feelings towards each other, but they're a bit awkward about it. They won't express those feelings, and it's got nothing to do with the horror element, but again, it's another one of those things that just kind of takes you out. It gives you a false sense of security, like you're watching some kind of drama, and then when you're thrown back into the deep end, you're caught off guard and you realize, oh yeah, this is a horror film. Again, it's executed very, very well, and it doesn't disorientate the film in any way. Now, the film itself is kind of a horror adventure film at times. There are moments where it feels like you're watching a Goonies film, to a degree anyway. It's certainly a horror film, but it has got these little elements of adventure and, like I said before, humor as well. But it doesn't take away the fact that you are watching a horror film. But I'm getting way ahead of myself now, because the biggest star in this film is the visuals itself. First of all, the mansion is creepy as hell. Well, it's derelict, so it's going to be. There is no light coming through the windows, which is kind of relevant to the story too, but I'm not giving away any spoilers. So the house is dark, dusty, dingy, there are cobwebs everywhere, it's falling apart. It's not somewhere you would ideally want to spend the night, but again, it creates that creepy atmosphere. When the film and TV crew enter the mansion, the first thing you see is a baby carriage. Now, normally we associate babies with new life. They're beautiful, it's bright and bubbly, and oh, good times. But in this case, the carriage is in a dark, dingy mansion. It's covered in dust and cobwebs, and it's very, very morbid. One of the things I really, really do appreciate in this film is the use of the shadow play. Now, when films were originally shot in black and white, they used a lot of clever lighting to create silhouettes and shadows. This was to make up for the lack of colour and give a bit more depth to the movie. It's a technique that we don't tend to see so much anymore now that films are shot in colour, but this film does it perfectly. In fact, the shadows in this film are relevant to the story. It's something that I do appreciate, and it is done very, very well. But I'm saving the best till last, because the reason why this film is such a visual masterpiece is because of the practical effects. Now, a lot of people seem to think that I hate CGI, and I don't hate it. I think it does have its place, but I do feel like with modern films, it's overused a little bit too much, especially with green screen, and I think it just takes away a lot of that realism, and not enough practical effects are used anymore. Now, back in the day, movie makers only had practical effects to rely on, and sometimes they looked great and other times they didn't. It all depends on how well they were done. Not every film can be John Carpenter's The Thing, I'm afraid. That being said, Sweet Home from 1989 has some of the best practical effects I have ever seen, and I am not exaggerating, guys. I absolutely love the effects in this film. In fact, it is the biggest star in the film. It is the reason why the film is so good. I mean, if you like your horror films to be graphic and gory, this has certainly got that, but on top of that, it's got fantastic puppetry, it's got amazing animatronics, it's just a glory to watch. The only real downside that I would say this film has is it's not really paced very well. I get the impression that the director of this film was trying to build up to a huge climax towards the end, but they just dragged it out a little bit too much. Other than that, I adore this film so much. Let's talk about the pros and the cons of this film then. So the pros are, like I said, the visual aspect. This film isn't a masterpiece as a whole, but visually it is. Of course, the practical effects are going to steal the show, but on top of that, the shadow play is executed perfectly. The entire mansion looks spooky and creepy, it's dark throughout the film, perfect camera angles, perfect ambience, it's fantastic. The music in this film is spot on, even when it's not there. It's just, again, absolutely done to perfection. Personally, I found the characters interesting. Whether you will or not, I don't know. It all depends on whether I just had that deeper connection with the characters in the game. And not that it's really related, but I love the fact that there are some elements in the game that are in the film too. Like there's a bit in the game where you have to clean the fresco, or one of the frescoes, with a vacuum cleaner and then take a picture of it. And it kind of happens in the movie too. Again, it's not related, but it just kind of helps with that connection and it makes me love it all that more. As far as the cons go in the movie, there are a couple of characters who are meant to be kind of comic relief. One of them is the cameraman, who I actually do find funny, to be honest. But the other one is this kind of grumpy, booze-drinking mechanic, and I don't particularly find him funny. The reason why he's there is he's got a lot of knowledge on what happened in the mansion, and he kind of tells the audience the story or the mystery behind it all. But I just find him a bit annoying. And the other con in the movie is it's not particularly paced well, especially towards the end. The movie does try to build to a climax and the effects towards the end are spectacular, but it's too drawn out. I just feel like they could have cut it a bit better, made the movie a bit shorter, but you know, it's totally watchable and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Hey folks, in the process of editing this review, I realised that I totally forgot to give this film a score rating out of 10, so I'm giving it a 7.5. By no means is it a perfect film, but it's fairly decent and I totally recommend that you check it out. Back to the review. So there you have it, folks. That is my review on Sweet Home from 1989. Now, if you are interested in watching this film, the only way that I know you can see it is somebody has uploaded the entire movie onto YouTube, and if you select the subtitles, they are totally in English. Other than that, I got a physical copy from twistedanger.com. Now, like I said, I'm not sponsored by them, but they do sell kind of lost horror films that don't actually have any legitimate physical copy, like grindhouse horror and 70s horror, that kind of stuff. So you can buy it from them, and they will send it with with the artwork on the case and everything. And if any of you do know of a legitimate release of this film, please let me know in the comment section, because I would like to own this on DVD or Blu-ray. So guys, have you seen this film? If you have, what do you think of it? Did you enjoy the practical effects in it? Do you think they're as good as I made them out to be, or do you think I'm just blowing it well out of proportion? And the music too, I thought the music was fantastic. What did you guys think of it? Please do let me know in the comments section. And what are your thoughts on old classic horror and subtitled films? Do you think that we need to do more to get people to appreciate these films? Please do let me know, guys. And until next time, I don't know who they are, but if you don't subscribe, they will get you. And trust me, they will. And they said you've got to leave a like as well. And share this channel with your friends. As far as this video is concerned, this is a new channel. It needs some love, people. Help me out. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.